That weekend, the peace in Mr. and Mrs. Koa's home suddenly vanished after a brief but heavy conversation. The devastating news left them both stunned. Dan's mother, driven by mounting misunderstandings and blind jealousy, had hired someone to kidnap Han. Everything happened too quickly, too cruelly, like a blow to the fragile faith of those involved. Although the incident was promptly reported and the authorities quickly intervened, anxiety still enveloped Mr. and Mrs. Koa. No one could be sure that the storm had truly subsided. Thinking of Han, a woman who had endured so much pain, and the innocent little boy Tom, Mr. Koa's heart grew heavier. Those two, though innocent, could still become targets of cruel schemes if danger still lurked. After a long and anxious discussion, Mr. Koa and his husband came to a quick but decisive decision. They had to take Han and Tom to stay elsewhere temporarily, away from their old home to ensure their safety. It was not just an arrangement for a place to stay, but a protective embrace, a way to shield the mother and son from the unpredictable. As soon as they agreed, Dr. Koa couldn't sit still for another minute. Impatience urged him to immediately set off to find Han's house. Outside, the weekend day was still passing slowly, but in his heart, his steps were hurried and full of anxiety. He only hoped he would arrive in time to take Han and Tom away from the fear that surrounded them, to begin safer, more peaceful days of temporary refuge. Amidst events that could have crushed anyone, Han quietly carried on, refusing to allow herself to fall. Life never stopped challenging her, but she never gave herself the right to give up. That morning, like any other day, Han put on her old shirt and carried her basket to the familiar lemon grove. The lush green lemon trees stretched out before her eyes, ripe fruit peeking out from behind the leaves, like a gentle reminder that as long as you work hard, the heavens will not disappoint you. As she deftly picked lemons, Han slowly recounted her livelihood. Each lime she picked added a little hope, a few more coins to save for Tom. She sold agricultural products, saving up day by day, not dreaming of luxury, just hoping to have enough for meals and enough money for her child to grow up healthy. Han's dreams were simple: a stable home, a life free from fear, and a peaceful future for her little boy. The hard work made Han's back dark with sweat and her hands tired and sore, but her eyes still shone with determination. Han understood that she was not only a mother, but also Tom's only support. Fatigue could come, tears could fall on lonely nights, but during the day, she still had to be strong, still had to stand firm to be a pillar for her child. In the afternoon, after finishing picking lemons, Han stopped by her sister Men's house to pick up little Tom. As soon as he saw his mother, Tom clung to her skirt and smiled brightly. On the way home, Han couldn't hide her happiness as she watched her son, who had once fit snugly in her arms, now taking his first tentative steps. Each of those tentative steps seemed to give her strength, erasing the weariness in her heart. Back home, Han stopped by the small garden behind the house. The lush green vegetable beds she had planted with her own hands were now ready for harvest. She bent down to pick each bunch of vegetables, cherishing them as the fruits of her perseverance and hope. The clean, fresh vegetables not only improved their daily meals, but were also good for the health of both mother and child, something Han always prioritized. At the end of the day, in the simple kitchen, Han lit the fire to prepare a modest meal. It wasn't fancy, just a bowl of green vegetable soup and a few simple dishes. But the small kitchen warmed up with Tom's laughter and the rare peace that crept in after a long day. Amidst the storms, Han suddenly realizes happiness is sometimes as simple as watching her child grow each day, cooking a warm meal with her own hands, and believing that tomorrow, despite the challenges ahead, she will still be strong enough to keep going. Han was busy in the kitchen, the aroma of freshly cooked rice and green vegetables still lingering in the air, when suddenly a motorbike roared from the alley, speeding straight towards her and stopping abruptly in front of the door. The unexpected noise startled Han. Before she could understand what was happening, she saw Dieu get off the motorbike. Dieu's eyes were tired, mixed with tension and anxiety, the eyes of someone burdened with too much guilt. Dieu stood silently for a few seconds, then apologized. Her voice trembled and faltered. In that heavy conversation, Dieu admitted everything. She confessed that jealousy, the fear of losing Don, had driven her to lose her reason, letting jealousy lead her too far. Her words seemed to release all her guilt, but also exposed the selfishness that had once clouded her conscience. Hearing each word, Han's heart ached. Pain and anger surged, and memories of those chaotic days, of the danger her son had faced, flashed vividly before her. However, Han still tried to maintain her composure. She looked directly at Dieu, her voice slow but firm. Han said she could forgive emotionally, because resentment only weighed heavily on her heart. But legally, she couldn't compromise. Her life and Tom's life couldn't be exchanged for a few belated apologies. Realizing her apology couldn't erase the consequences, Dieu lowered her voice. Her initial remorse was quickly replaced by pent-up frustration. Her old nature resurfaced. Dieu believed everyone was pushing her to the brink, that no one understood or gave her a chance. In a fit of anger, Dieu turned her back, started her car, and sped away without a word of farewell, leaving behind a heavy atmosphere and a chilling silence. Han stood silently watching. Her anxiety hadn't completely dissipated, but she only sighed softly and shook her head. Her life had been through too many upheavals, enough to understand that some things couldn't be held back, nor could they be changed by fleeting emotions. The only thing she could do was continue living, continue protecting her child. She returned to the kitchen, continuing to cook as if nothing had happened. The dishes were still simple and familiar, but cooked with all the calmness she had just regained. When the meal was served, mother and son sat together. Tom's clear laughter rang out, dispelling some of the remaining gloom. In that moment, Han understood that, after all the storms, these simple moments of peace were what she needed to cherish at all costs. Before all the turmoil had subsided, Miss Koa appeared as a solid support system that Han desperately needed. Upon hearing about what had happened, Miss Koa didn't hesitate for a moment, rushing to Han's house with a worried expression. The vague fear that any delay might lead to further misfortune made her even more anxious. She came not just to inquire, but to make a decisive decision. To take Han and her child to her home temporarily, a safer place with adult supervision and protective arms. Miss Koa's words of encouragement were gentle yet warm. She attentively cared for Han in every detail, from meals and sleep to ensuring safety around the house, as if Han were her own flesh and blood. Not only did she protect Han physically, but she also silently stayed by her side, listening and helping Han alleviate the emotional wounds weighing heavily on her. This genuine care gradually melted away Han's defenses. For the first time after a long period of tension, she allowed herself to be vulnerable. Han choked back tears as she recounted everything. She spoke of the resentments she had swallowed, the constant fear she felt whenever she thought of her son, and the guilt of not wanting things to escalate. Deep down, Han still thought of Dan, a kind man who had once helped her and her son, and she didn't want him to be hurt or caught up in the mistakes of others. Listening to Han's confession, Mrs. Koa gently took her hand, neither scolding nor forcing her, simply silently showing Han that she wasn't alone. As dusk fell, Han and her son began packing. They didn't have much luggage, just a few sets of clothes, essential items, and a few things that were special to Tom. The innocent boy didn't fully understand the recent events, only chattering around his mother, his clear eyes shining with absolute trust. The car rolled away, taking the mother and son from their familiar little house. Behind them, anxieties lingered, but ahead lay Uncle Kwa's house, a temporary shelter from the storm. Han sat silently, holding Tom close, a wave of indescribable emotion rising in her heart. She knew the road ahead held many challenges, but at least, for now, she had a place to rely on, people willing to extend their arms to protect her and her son with all sincerity. Arriving at Uncle Kwa's house, when things had calmed down somewhat, the two sat opposite each other in a much quieter space. Aunt Kwa poured a cup of warm water and placed it in front of Han, her eyes filled with both worry and compassion. The conversation unfolded slowly, without rushing, allowing Han enough time to pour out everything she had been holding inside. Aunt Kwa listened silently to every word Han told, every tear that fell. Through these pieces of the puzzle, she gradually understood the underlying causes of everything: blind jealousy, accumulated misunderstandings, and the fear of loss that had pushed people beyond their limits. However, despite her understanding, Miss Koa remained resolute. Her voice deepened but was firm as she advised Han not to disregard the law out of compassion or deference. She spoke slowly, each word deeply etched into Han's heart. If evil is not stopped, it can return at any time, even more dangerously. Not only Han, but Tom could also become a victim. The law is not meant to punish for revenge, but to protect the vulnerable and prevent tragedy from recurring. Those words silenced Han. She bowed her head and thought for a long time. She still felt remorse and guilt when she thought of Dan, innocent in all of this. But then, looking at Tom sleeping peacefully in her arms, Han suddenly understood. She was no longer living only for herself. Every decision she made directly affected her son's safety and future. Thanks to Miss Koa's sincere and rational encouragement, Han gradually regained her spirits. While the fear hadn't completely dissipated, it no longer made her tremble as before. Instead, there was a newfound determination. Han understood that she had to be strong, not only to overcome this ordeal, but also to be a solid support for Tom. In Miss Koa's warm home, for the first time after a long period of turmoil, Han felt a glimmer of peace. Small, but enough to make her believe that she could still stand firm and move forward. After all those overwhelming events, Uncle Kwa understood better than anyone that Han was carrying too much pressure on her shoulders. Without saying much, he gently suggested taking the two of them out for a walk to relax and get some fresh air. Han hesitated briefly, but seeing Tom's eager eyes, she nodded slightly. Perhaps all three needed a moment of quiet to breathe. The small cafe nestled in a corner, warm and peaceful on a cold day. The aroma of hot coffee mingled with the scent of pastries, soothing the soul. Tom sat quietly beside his mother, his tiny hands clutching a warm cup of milk, occasionally giggling as he watched the raindrops still clinging to the window pane. Han sat there, listening to Uncle Kwa's everyday stories, not heavy-handed, not reproachful, just simple words, but enough to make her feel protected. Outside, the rain had stopped some time ago. The gray clouds gradually drifted away, revealing a brighter, clearer sky. The weak sunlight after the rain reflected on the still wet road, sparkling like fragile yet very real hopes. Han silently watched the scene, a lightness in her heart. She realized that after every storm, the sun would still shine, as long as people were patient enough to wait. Amidst unhealed wounds and lingering traumas, Han began to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. She no longer ran away from fear, nor let resentment lead her astray. Instead, she chose to believe in goodness, to believe in the kind people who had appeared at the right time in her life. Looking at Tom laughing and playing carefree beside her, Han gently squeezed her son's hand, silently promising to continue moving forward, slowly but steadily, walking with her son through the rest of their lives.